10 years ago. 10 years ago, I lost my father. Yeah. Hey guys, how's it going? This is kind of gonna be a different video, obviously, commemorating that anniversary. Where did we get? I suppose the beginning. Wynne Gordon Hegland was born on January 31st, 1943. Yes. In or around McIntosh, Minnesota, which is a very small town way up north. Was raised there, went to school there. At some point in the early 60s, I would presume. As soon as he was of age, he joined the National Guard. Did a tour there, didn't go overseas, I don't think. Came back, started playing music, moved down to the cities at some point. I'm guessing probably, 65, 66, somewhere in there. Along the way, met my mother. They got married in 1967. Had my brother 3 years later, and I came along 4 years after that. Here we are, looks like shortly after I was born. I'm the little one. And that's my dad and my mom and my brother Mitchell, who looks not so impressed with me, but what do you do? He worked various jobs. I know he worked for a while. He was at the Canada Dry canning facility. He worked for the county. He was a sort of an accountant. I don't know if he was a CPA or not, but I would assume so. Worked for the county, Hennepin County, for a little bit, and what I remember from my childhood was he worked at, he was an accountant for Catholic Charities downtown, an office. I went to visit him many times when we'd have lunch, meet him by his office, which, ironically enough, now looking back on it, I thought it was so cool because he had his own little cube and his own name tag. And for a while I thought, yeah, that's what I want too, and now I have it, and yeah, no. Anyway, so he did that, but he also played music. He, as I said, he started playing, I would assume, in the mid-60s sometimes. By the time I came around, and maybe between Mitchell and me, he had a band called Rebecca, and I should have grabbed some of their promo material, but oh well, because they actually had promo material. They had professional pictures taken, and they had their own newsletter for a while. And they played all the time. I mean, as I tell people, it was an odd childhood in a way because he worked 5 days a week, normal office day job, and then he would play up to 5 nights a week. So he would work Monday through Friday and sometimes play, Wednesday or Thursday till Sunday. Not every week, obviously, but that's kind of where I got the beginnings of my education into this business, was through him. Also, my slight obsession, shall we say, in documenting things and wanting to document things. My dad was the exact same way. Here's a cassette, and I have a whole drawer of these. Rebecca, October 1974. So that is, doing the math, what, 8 months after I'm born? I believe this is the oldest one I have, and I've got various stuff going through late 80s, I think. So a good like 15 years worth of documented gigs. I mean, that's all these are. They're just gig tapes. And Rebecca and Loose Wheels, the band that happened after that, and Traces, the band that happened after that. I think that's the three main ones at least. They were all, you know, your typical top 40 cover bands. So you have, you know, the music of the time, you know, in the Midnight Hour and Donna and Thunder Road, a whole lot of Shakin' Medley, what they did a 50s medley. Yeah, and this is fourth set. So, fourth set, October 25th, 1974, from the Gay Paris. Which was one of the clubs that they played often, along with the Legion and VFW circuit. But yeah, so I learned a lot from him actually, as far as the business goes. Well, not really the business goes, but as far as the day-to-day, you know, workings of a not full-time. Although at one point I think he was considering going full-time, but never did. This was early on. This is right around the time I was born, maybe a little bit before, from what I understand. So he did that. What else we got? Another undated picture. There's me and him just kind of hanging out on the couch. Another family shot. This is probably, I'm gonna guess probably early 80s, very early 80s. Again, my dad, my brother, my mother. And then we get into a little bit later. This is a gathering at our house. This is probably mid-80s sometime. My dad over here in the corner. The gentleman, I don't know who is on the other side. Not exactly sure. Might be one of my stepsisters actually. But the gentleman there is my Uncle Lyle. That's my mom's brother. And I believe that is my cousin Tracy right there, I believe. That's my brother looking disgruntled over there. And then here's a fun shot. So as I said, Mom and Dad got married in 1967. They split up in about 1986, I want to say. In 1989, end of my freshman year in high school, my dad got remarried. And that is us at the wedding, which, yes, did take place at a either Legion or VFW was one of the two, I don't remember. That's me on the end, on this far end. My brother, my Uncle Ron, my dad's brother, and my father. And they're obviously in some sort of deep discussion, as you were. So here is, I'm not exactly sure what this is for. I'm assuming I think this is my maybe the 50th. My mom's parents, Grandma and Grandpa Fetty, might be their 50th anniversary party. I'm not sure. But you have me looking very skinny in the skinny tie. This would have been very, very early 90s probably. You have my dad right behind me, then my brother and his wife Jackie in the back. Across from my dad you have his new wife Patty, and then on the end there, across from me, is Patty's youngest daughter Becky, who is my stepsister. So, what else can I say? He was a good man. Like, literally, I don't think I've known anyone in my life who disliked him. He was just one of those kind of people. Everywhere we went, he ran into somebody he knew. And he was just a good guy. He tried to see the best in everyone. He was seemingly happy and content most of the time. I mean, I only saw him lose his temper a couple of times, and never directed at me. Even it was more of a, you know, I'm not mad, I'm disappointed kind of upbringing. Not that I ever really did anything bad. I mean, the quote unquote bad things I've done, I could probably count on one hand and still have a couple fingers left over. I don't know. I never saw the attraction of getting into trouble. And I think that's something, not directly, but just by observing him and observing the way he was, that was kind of instilled in me. Just to, don't take life quite so seriously. Always look for the good in people. I mean, there was things he didn't understand, but he wasn't, as far as I know, as far as I could tell, he wasn't, a prejudiced man. He wasn't, racially motivated. He liked everybody. And if you were cool, he was cool with you. Which is kind of the overarching life lesson I've tried to live my life by. Of course, he was also, an alcoholic. Not alcoholic in the sense that he came home every day and had a drink. But again, nothing bad. I only saw him noticeably drunk. Again, just a handful of times in my life. It just was steady. He just maintained. And he taught me a lot about that too. There are pictures of me which I was going to dig out of, I'm sure him and his friends were around when I was very, very little, like a toddler. And there are pictures of me with some sort of bottle, bigger bottle, probably a wine bottle or something, tipped up, hopefully empty, as if I'm drinking it. And then the next picture is me laying down on the floor. Oh, excuse me. And I'm sure, they're just cracking up at that, but also, by the time I was 12, I could successfully prepare probably half a dozen different cocktails. So there's that. I knew how to properly pour a beer, dipping the glass and pouring it in, and all that stuff. So that's always handy info to have. I mean, honestly, some of my favorite memories are him and I loading up in the van with all the, cases of empty returnable glass bottles and going to the liquor store, going to the Minnehaha Lake liquor store and returning them, and I always got a lollipop, I always got a dum-dum, which I enjoyed. So that instills, good feelings there. But again, I mean, he taught me the joy of music, and not because he sat down and showed me things. He may have when I was little. Honestly, I don't remember. I just remember because he was a musician, because he was in like a top 40 band, we had a ton of records in the house, and he was always learning something. So there's many songs that I can't listen to now because I heard them in the process of being learned like way too many times. He was a keyboard player, so the keyboard intro to Dire Straits' Walk of Life is one of those songs, because he spent a good long time trying to get that one down. So I just heard that one repetitively. But so I guess, subconsciously I was just drawn to music, and eventually drawn to performing and playing and all that fun stuff. But unlike a lot of people, a lot of stories I've heard, I don't think I ever used music as an actual escape, in the sense of, running into my room and cracking it to drown out yelling or to drown out whatever noise was going on. I never did that. It was just something that was kind of always there. Oddly. I don't know. Maybe I'm veering off now. But anyway. So he played pretty continuously until early 90s, going into the mid 90s, and then he just stopped. He was pretty much always the quote unquote leader of the whatever band he was in, mainly because he owned the PA, and he had to lug that around and set it up, and that at the time kind of makes you the de facto leader, and he handled, from what I understand, again, he never really opened this side of the business to me, but he apparently handled all of the bookings and the finances and all that stuff, and it just got too much for him, and he just stopped for a good while. And oddly enough, it was after I moved out. I moved out spring of '94. And it was shortly after that we kind of lost contact. I mean, we would still go over there for Christmas and whatnot, but we weren't. There was a definite disconnect. And that only really came back together when he started playing again. So music literally was our family connection. So the reason he kind of started playing, he never played out like he did before. I don't think. I'm trying to remember. I don't think he was on any sort of like, I don't even think he played bars again. But what he did was he would start playing because he was also highly involved in the American Legion, and was commander of the 5th District in, I think he finally made commander in 2008, something like that, like right before he passed. But he was involved, in the years prior to that. So what he would do is, for their convention, which they had once a year, twice a year, I don't remember, he would organize the entertainment, and he would get all of his musician buddies to come together and do a couple hours of dance music, shall we say, for the people. Which is how I eventually reconnected with him. Because he had tapped me a couple years, and one year I couldn't do it. The next year I was supposed to do it, and I went there, and I wound up bartending all night. Somehow, I don't remember how, but the year after that, I think I played, and that kind of began this kind of new phase of playing. So he would assemble these groups for the Legion conventions, and one of the guys that he tapped was one of his oldest friends, a guitarist named Al Moen, who he had kind of met way back in the early 70s. Quick story: Al was in this group. I don't remember what the name of that group was, but they were kind of like, this is after Dad moved down to the cities, obviously. But that group was kind of the hot shit group up in Erskine, where Al was from, which is not too far from McIntosh, if you know the area. McIntosh, Foston, Erskine, Winger, all of this is just east of Detroit Lakes. So Al's band was a hot shit band, but then we had this other band coming up, and I don't remember, I think it was Rebecca at the time. We have this band coming up from the cities, and they're like really, really good. And I was like, how good can they be? And he saw them with that, going in with that attitude, and or he saw them down here. He saw them, and he was like, oh, they are really good. And he somehow got talking to Dad afterwards, and they were just chatting, and one of the two said, well, where are you from? And the other one said, well, I'm a small town up north, you wouldn't have heard of it. And the other one was like, well, me too, what town? And so one of them said the town, and the other one said, oh, I know that town, I'm from this town. And they basically became lifelong friends after that. So Al was one of the guys who Dad always pegged for these convention gigs, and that ended up, so they started doing some gigs together, including, I think the first one was one of the towns up north were having all-class reunion, and they were going to be in the parade. And so they were in the parade, just Alan guitar, and I think Dad was playing accordion, which was his first instrument. Really, actually, really surprisingly, really, really good accordion player. So that kind of spawned that, and then that eventually led to going up there, every year around, in the late summer, and eventually, because Al hooked up with one of his childhood buddies, Kelly, who was a bass player, and then for one year, the four of us came together and did a gig, and that was fun. That was a lot of fun. But then that was literally like the year before, like 2008. So by the next year, Dad had passed, obviously. So it was just me and Alan Kelly, and then we did that, and that continued for a couple years after that. We were doing those gigs. So that led to that, which is kind of cool. Um, where was I gonna go with that? See, knew I should have written this down. But so he was involved in the Legion, and actually, and somehow I got this, and there was some debate with my ex because she thought it should have gone to Mitchell, being the oldest, the firstborn. But this is something that my dad got posthumously, 5th District Outstanding Legionnaire Award. Which is cool, which I mean, I've meant to actually put up somewhere. And I have a little bit of a memorial wall, but I have to rearrange some things because it's quite full and not a very big wall. Oh, that's what I was going to say. So, and I don't know if I told the story before. I don't know. And I'll try to wrap this up. The last gig my dad ever played, it was me, him, and Al. It was at Fort Snelling, and somebody from Fort Snelling, a General Grubb, had been to one of the conventions and seen us play and liked us and booked us for their like quarterly dinner and meeting thing. And we were supposed to play just like not even that long, 45 minutes, an hour of like dance music, either right after dinner or right after the meeting, one of the two. And by this time, Dad had already been diagnosed with the pancreatic cancer, and we knew that, and you know, so. But we went in, we did the gig, or went in, going to do the gig, and a week before the gig, General Grubb dies. So we're like, oh shit. But you know, we decided to go forward because now, of course, it's a dinner meeting memorial for General Grubb, and which is weird anyway, and it was kind of uncomfortable. So we go in there, and it's at Fort Snelling, just one of the officers' dining rooms or whatever. So we go in there, set everything up, get everything ready, and we're eating dinner. And the guy who's speaking is like, you know, saying that this is, you know, a memorial for the Grubb, but we have, you know, I don't even know what we called ourselves at the point. You know, we have whatever playing, and everybody started applauding and looking at us, so we kind of stood up awkwardly and kind of waved. And so then dinner was done, meeting was done. We got up. We're about 3 songs in. Couldn't have been more than 3 or 4 songs in. When we look outside, and of course there's a huge blizzard. This is just a couple weeks before, so this is probably mid-March of 2009. And huge blizzard, and everybody's like, well, we gotta go. So and the thing that stands out, 2 things stand out from the Grubb gig. One of them is that my dad, who was sober at the time, just fell off the stage, just like, which kind of shook us a little bit, and we're like, yeah, you okay? And the other thing is that as we were packing up, the door had frozen shut in him and Mary's SUV, so I had to get inside and like kick it open to get the gear and whatnot. So then we're done with that. They drive me home, and we're like, we'll talk later or whatever, and let us know. And then so it was literally probably within 2 days of that me and my girlfriend at the time, Jenny, get home, and we get a message from Al saying, "Have you been to see your father? You should go see him, like, right now." And so we're like, okay, so we get over there, and as soon as I walked in the door and looked through the kitchen, through into the living room, and saw him sitting in his chair, I could tell. I'm like, the person sitting in that chair is no longer the man I knew. You just get that feeling, and you just know. And so we spent the next week and a half, whatever it was, pretty much there, helping Mary, who, by no fault of her own, turns out was not giving him nearly the amount of pain medication he actually needed. And it was just, and it was a very, very weird, tense situation, as you would expect. But eventually, I mean, my brother came and he helped, and my Uncle Ron and his new wife Christy came up and helped out. And at the end of about like a week and a half, like literally like the night before, so would have been March 31st, we finally convinced Mary to, let him go to a hospice situation. And we got, finally convinced her, and we got him loaded him into the ambulance and got him in there. And this is one of those things that never leave you. The look on Mary's face when she saw, because he was, in bad shape, he was wailing and crying, and it was just not good. And holding my hand and squeezing it, and the huge amount of painkillers it took to calm him down, and the look on Mary's face when she saw just how stingy isn't the right word, but just how cautious she had been. Just it never leaves you. So we finally got him calmed down, and we left, and I went to work the next morning, and I was at work for about a half hour, I think, when I got either a call or text saying, "You need to get to the hospital now." And so I did, and then there you go, and he had already passed by that point. And so, I kind of went in the room, said my final goodbyes, and there you go. And it affected me, but it affected me differently than I thought it would. Because before that point, I always felt that my dad was the only one who truly understood me, even though he didn't. I mean, there were aspects of my life that he didn't understand, aspects of his that I didn't understand. But of the family, we were probably the most alike, the most connected. Mainly because of the music thing and just the I don't know, just our attitudes were very, very, very similar. And I always said to people at that point, I don't know what I'm going to do when he goes. I mean, I thought I would just like fall apart and just whatever. And I think the reason, and I didn't, and I think the reason I didn't is because morning he passed, that sets a whole new set of gears into motion where you have to figure out, okay, what do we want to do with the body, and have to set up the funeral and do blah, 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 do all that fun stuff. So I really didn't have a chance to fall apart because we were just going. And he was cremated. We picked out a very, very plain little wooden box, which I believe my brother still has in his house somewhere. The one kind of funny thing, and out of all, I mean, out of that whole period, that whole like 3-week period, this is the moment that will probably stick with me forever. We were setting up for the service, and it was in some sort of chapel. I don't remember. It might have been at the funeral home. I don't remember exactly. And it was me and Al and maybe my brother or Ron and maybe a couple of other my dad's friends. Maybe CD was there. And we thought, okay, so we'll set up one of his keyboards, you know, behind where the guys, the officiant is going to, you know, present and do whatever, you know, just as you do, because, you know, you're a musician. You know, at Dwayne Allman's funeral, they had his guitar and amp up, you know, so same deal. So we get it up there, we set it up on little, it wasn't even a stage, it was, you know, a little thing. And we all kind of turn and we're kind of chatting, and out of nowhere we just hear this crash, and the keyboard literally went, you know, dived off the stage and hit the floor and kind of exploded. And at that point we literally all kind of looked at each other and went, you know what, I think he's trying to tell us something. I don't think he wants it there. I think he wants us to keep it simple. And we all agreed, and we kind of swept up pieces, and there you go. So I'm not a spiritual man by nature, but that was definitely something. That was definitely a sign of something. And I just remember after the funeral, after all the service, all that stuff, we went back to him and Mary's house, and we just sat. And it was me and Jenny and Mary and John, one of his old friends and guitar players, and Al might have been there, and CD might have been there. And we just sat around and told stories for like a couple hours, and just had this huge sigh of relief, you know. And maybe it was the thought that, you know, as you think, you know, his pain is over and he's in a better place and all that. And maybe it was that. Maybe it was just the fact that, you know, selfishly it's like, okay, now that's over. We don't have to, you know, the last 3 weeks of stress is over and we don't have to deal with that anymore. I'm not sure. But it was really kind of nice to just breathe again and to share in the memories of him, of which there are many, so many stories. Oh my God. And then there you go. We had, so before that, after, I mean, the reception, is that what you call it after your funeral? A reception? Was held, I think, at Post 1. I'm not sure. But of course there was a huge jam, and all of his musician buddies were there and paying tribute, and as you do. And yeah, it was a good time. Or maybe it was there that the keyboard fell. It might have been there that the keyboard fell. I'm not sure. But he was definitely sending a sign of some sort. So yeah, that was that was my day 10 years ago. Yes, to you, Pop. Never called you Pop. I don't know why I said that. Dad. Oh. So, in the end, you know, tell people how you feel. Because you never know what's going to happen. I guess that's all I got for now. So thank you for, if you watched this entire 40-minute video, thank you. It was something I felt I needed to do, and hopefully it'll turn out okay. And hopefully it'll make you want to remember or reach out or what have you. So until next time, we'll talk to you later.